Hello viewer, this is your first agricultural TV station in the nation capital Abuja, and my name remains Joshua Ishaya, and guess what is the program Aqua Farming. Aqua Farming is a program designed to talk about everything that lives in the water, or they're about things that you can actually explore into, and they're about gaining employment for each and every unemployed person by leveraging on agriculture as the new oil today. Of course, like any other day, we make sure we get the best brains in the field to come over to the studio to discuss some topical issues that has to do with aqua farming. And today, like any other day, we have a very special guest, a veterinarian with the Agricultural Research Council of Nigeria, talking about Dr. Mark Ojemeren. Doctor, it's good to have you in the program.
Thank you very much.
Snails are one of the most, sought for aquatic animal, or rather aquatic organism, and it's no doubt it is now a gold mine, as a lot of people have ventured into this business and they have smiled into the bank. And today on the program we'll be looking at snail farming in focus. So everything you need to know about snail farming is what we are going to be discussing. Doctor, once again, you're welcome to the program.
Thank you.
Right, in your own opinion, can you briefly explain or introduce what snail farming is all about?
With the ever increasing cost of other animal protein sources in the country, it's imperative that we look at other alternate sources, and snails will serve as one of those sources. Basically, the keeping of snails is very important. They serve as a very good protein source to the population. They have no religious constraints as some other livestock animals, and they are very nutritious, and that's just it.
All right. Now, say someone is watching, which I'm very sure a young person who wants to venture into snail farming. For you, what is the step you're going to give that very person to say, okay, this is how to go about it to have a successful snail farm in general?
Basically, from the start, you have to run a feasibility study in your area to know from the start of the agricultural process till marketing your products. You have to make sure that you have everything in place so that you won't have products that you cannot sell. Second, so from the start, after running your feasibility, you have to look at creating a housing environment for your snails, after which you source the snails you want to keep. After sourcing the snails you want to keep, you have to look at providing feed materials that they will need throughout the period where you will be keeping them. And also you have to take care of the environment, and after that you have to do monthly checks to check their weights, check their progress, and after which, when they become adults, they could easily be sold as adults or adult size.
Okay, now let's talk about their housing. Their housing, a lot of people just feel, okay, I can probably dig a hole and then pour them in. Some feel, okay, it's actually a wrong routine. What's the best housing for a proper snail farming?
The housing for snails is very natural. Snails in general like an organic environment where they have direct contact to the soil, or a form of contact to the soil. And even in advanced snail farms where the whole floor is flawed, you actually have to provide some organic materials that will serve as beddings for the snails. So in keeping snails, for a farmer who wants to start, he could easily just start with having a container where you get some good rich loamy soil, loose soil, and put as bedding. Then you can place your snails on it.
Okay.
While it could go as the housing could now go as far as doing constructions whereby you raise two to three block levels, and you create a cemented area and put those organic materials as bedding, mainly the loamy soil and all of that.
All right. Now let's talk about their feeding. How is their feeding like? We know you fish maybe once in a day. With birds now, poultry now, it's good. It's like every 2 hours or thereabout, 1,000 lies. I know. what is their feeding nature like, and um, um, how consuming are snails when it comes to rearing them?
One of the good things about snails is that they don't really consume a whole lot.
Okay.
Most of the organic materials you have around you can easily be fed to snails, such as the back of our regular fruits like melon, the pineapples, among others. And also the leaves of trees, pawpaw trees, moringa can be cut and fed to them. They don't really eat a lot. The volume of food they eat is not so much. So most times, once you feed all those organic feeds, they do very well. Also, in big, large-scale farms, you could also supplement with some concentrates that particularly have a very high level of calcium and other minerals that will help them. So they don't really eat much, and even for a start, you just require to feed them with some organic materials and make sure that there's a lot of water.
Wow. Okay, you're still on to your first agricultural TV station. Let's go on a quick break. When we return, of course, the program continues. Stay tuned.
The Agricultural Research Council of Nigeria (ARCN) coordinates the activities of research institutes and is responsible for supervision, regulation, coordination of research activities and programs of higher institutions in Nigeria. And Professor Hamidu Shaributu, since assumption as Executive Secretary of ARCN in April 2020, has solidified the transformation of agriculture in Nigeria through strategic and meaningful execution of research findings for improvement of the agricultural sector.
For grains, we have the parabolic solar dryers. These are specialized solar dryers used for drying agricultural produce such as whole grains, yam and cassava chips, fruits and vegetables more efficiently. It is made of a special material that concentrates the rays of the sun within the enclosure while eliminating harmful ultraviolet radiation. Products dried are free from contaminants and are hygienic.
The parabolic shaped solar dryer is a need-based technology because virtually when we travel all over the country, you will see by the roadside, you see people drying all sorts of agricultural produce. Some spread their own on bare ground, and by the time the vehicles are moving, they raise dust, the dust stay on the products. The reptiles will come, they will eat whatever they can eat, drop their feces and their urine on it, and the owner comes in the evening to pack everything together and still eat that product, and the product has been contaminated, and we feel this is not right, and it is part of our mandate to make sure that we set it right, and that was what led to this, so that we can solve this problem at the grassroots level. Instead of drying by the roadside, drying on just bare ground in their villages, when they have this as a drying center, everybody in the community can bring their product there, spread on the tray, and they get it dry under hygienic condition that is covered. And the dryer also have another property to screen the ultraviolet ray of the sun, which is also can cause hazard to human health.
The National Horticultural Research Institute, NIHORT, is one of the 15 agricultural research institutes in Nigeria under the supervision of the Agricultural Research Council of Nigeria. The institute started in 1975 as the Fruits and Vegetables Research and Demonstration Center with the assistance of the United Nations Development Programme, UNDP. It metamorphosed to National Horticultural Research Institute in 1976. NIHORT headquarters is located on a sprawling 350 hectares of land at Jericho area, Ibadan. To have a national spread and outlook, the institute has 3 outstations and 2 experimental stations. The outstations are Mbato, which sits on a massive 810 hectares of vast land located in the humid zone of southeastern Nigeria, Bagauda in Kano, made up of 110 hectares of land in the semi-arid zone of northwestern Nigeria, and finally a 156 hectare of farmland in Otukpo, Benue State.
National Horticultural Research Institute, NIHORT, has developed, registered and released 3 new varieties of tomato, which are tolerant to Fusarium wilt, root knot nematodes. They are high-yielding, early maturing with good nutritional values. These newly released tomato varieties are Otitum 1, Otitum 2 and Otitum 3, and they are adapted to different agroecological zones of the country. To minimize post-harvest losses, the Institute has developed value-added products from tomato, such as tomato paste, dried tomato slices, tomato wine, as well as tomato juice. The Institute has also developed Tuta Trap Tray to control tomato leaf miner, also known as tomato Ebola. Additionally, biopesticides have been developed in the Institute, known as NIHORT Liptol, NIHORT Ractane, and also the NIHORT Sticky Traps, which are effective in the management of tomato.
The Institute for Agricultural Research (IAR) is located in Samaru, Zaria in Kaduna State. It was established in 1922 as the research division of the Regional Ministry of Agriculture in the defunct Northern Nigeria region. The purpose at that time was to research into problems of agriculture and to provide solution, and to enhance productivity in agriculture in Northern Nigeria, including agricultural mechanization to reduce difficulties of operations such as planting, application of fertilizers and herbicides, drying. It also includes the development of improved crop varieties which are being planted by farmers in northern Nigeria. The Cereals Research Program of the Institute, which is charged with the mandate to research into the genetic improvement of cereal crops like maize, sorghum, among others, has developed over 60 varieties of maize and over 46 varieties of sorghum, among others, which are high-yielding, pest-resistant, and drought-tolerant. One of major breakthroughs of the Institute is the development of maize varieties that are resistant to the fall armyworm. RAR varieties of cereal crops are also resistant to striga weed, a parasitic weed which attaches itself to cereal crops and absorbs the nutrient, causing poor yield. IAR has to its credit 29 varieties of groundnut, 21 varieties of cowpea, including the very newest variety that has high resistance to insects. This can save Nigerian farmers at least 16 billion naira annually in the purchase of insecticides.
Food Technology and Value Addition Research Program is one of the key programs of the Research Outreach Department of the National Cereals Research Institute. This program has the mandate for reducing post-harvest loss through the utilization of improved technologies to combat, to reduce the losses and increase the value of those commodities. Recently, one of the key things we are able to do is to look at broken rice, a byproduct of rice processing, that we value rice by adding value to convert it into a product. One of these products is a Rice Plus. We call it NCRI Rice Plus. The NCRI Rice Plus is an instant smooth extruded breakfast cereal for the family. It is produced from broken rice and added with different types of legumes and vitamins and minerals. So for the family, it is an instant product you can use without cooking. Just add water and you formulate it and take it as a breakfast cereal.
Notes which I explained earlier. These are demonstrations. We have 3 demonstrations because we intend to release 3 varieties of millet. We intend to release one Bristol, Chakti, which is of very high iron and zinc, and then high yielding 0115. So we intend to release the 3. So before we release it this rainy season, we demonstrated here per band for each of the trial that we, the candidate of release, because we want the farmers around here to see and admire, because seeing is believing. So this is our demonstration field for the 3 varieties we intend to release.
Since then, Professor Shaributu has operated as visionary captain by restoring the council's glory with the first ever agricultural television and radio station in Nigeria, with well-equipped studios parading state-of-the-art equipment.
The Agricultural Research Council of Nigeria also has a brand new electronic library to further promote research and visualizations of deep thoughts on agricultural development in Nigeria.
The museum, located in the Senator Abdullahi Adamu Center, is an agricultural museum saddled with the responsibility of keeping records of agricultural findings, discoveries, researches for continuity and history purposes.
The Agricultural Research Council of Nigeria is wearing a new look under the stewardship of Professor Garba Hamidu Shaributu, who says, "Alone, I am nothing, but together, I am something." ARCN,
promoting agriculture.
Many thanks for staying with us here. Before we went on that break, we were discussing about the feeding pattern of snails. And of course, we've been discussing with none other but Dr. Mark Ojemerem, a veterinarian with the Agricultural Research Council of Nigeria. Doctor, it's good to have you back on the program.
Thank you.
Now, we're talking about their feeding now. And you talked about melons, what's the kind of bark now, and all those things and, and their likes. How fast is their growth that they will get to a point where you can actually sell? Like how many months would maybe a small snail be fed to get to the point of sell?
Basically, snails are kept for a year.
Okay.
So after a year, they will reach the adult size. If you keep the African giant snail, the Achatina, they take up to a year, and once they get to that 1 year, they attain market size, and it's at that point where they can be sold off. Other large-scale farms who might want to keep some of them to sell for reproduction and production of more younger snails. But however, at the age of 1 year, they can all be sold off.
Okay. So now, say for example, you got your snails for maybe 15 naira, and then you maybe after a year now, like how much can you go ahead and say you want to sell one?
Depending on the current market rates at the point of sale, but right now, one adult snail could go as high as 1,000 to 1,500.
Wow.
And also, there's a lot of demand for snails in and out of the country, so that further helps to the supply and demand for snails also further helps to determine the price of snails at a particular time of the year.
All right, now let's look at the lucrative side of the business in general. How lucrative is this business? Because there are a lot of business who are actually folding, and well, I will not say snail is part of it, but there are poultries who are packed out. There are what's it called? Ponds who are packed out as a result of the expensive feeding in poultry and aquaculture. How about snail? How lucrative is this business?
For snails, basically, you have a very limited production cost because the feed materials are relatively around your environment, so you won't have to invest a whole lot in buying feed materials. So that is one of the major differences with snail farmers and other livestock farmers. And also, we have to factor the fact that snails are very important. There are a lot of benefits for people who keep snails. The slime of snail is being extracted and sold. The shells are being used to serve as calcium sources.
The slime is being extracted and sold for what?
They're sold to pharmaceuticals and cosmetic industries.
Wow.
So it's a whole lot. And also there are a lot of snail farmers who keep snails in Nigeria, but they export it to other countries. It's a very good protein source that is in high demand in the country and out of the country.
Yeah. Okay, and so sure that every business or every farming actually has its hazards or the demerit, or rather the disadvantages. What is the disadvantage that is associated with snail farming?
A major problem with snail farming is predators.
Okay.
Predators such as termites. When you keep snails in places that are not properly aerated and have a lot of insects, those insects tend to affect the snails and end up killing the snail. A primary example is termites.
Okay.
Also, in some areas you might have some activities of humans, people moving around, people who just see these snails and pick them up without, since they are small scale, a lot of people will not have a track record of how many is in each pen and all of that. So mainly it's just the predators, but they really don't have any issues.
All right. Now, in your own opinion, why do you think that most people don't venture into snail farming? What could be the major thing? Because you hardly see a snail farmer. You can see a poultry farmer easily. You can see their likes. So why is it not been seen that it's even not cost effective? And then the advantages, the mortality rate is close to zero. You know, the merits are so amazing, but people don't really venture into it. Why could that be?
Basically, there are a lot of snail farmers in the southwest and in the south-south.
Okay.
Here in where we are recording in the north central and in the north, there's not so much demand for snails as in other parts of the country. And secondly, the knowledge and education of the farmers in this region has not really been so top-notch with regards to snail farming. So most times it's difficult to find people who are engrossed about the ideology of keeping snails as opposed to other livestock animals.
Okay. All right. Now, what is your general perception and advice to people who are watching now that, okay, you want to sell the idea of snail farming to them? Why should someone venture into snail farming?
Thank you very much. Snail farming will give everyone the ability to do something on the side that will not take their time, will not stress them. It's not like other livestock that you have to feed every day and you have to call for their attention every day. For snails, you can feed them as little as 3 times in a week and they are very fine. It's not going to take your time. It's not going to abruptly take a lot from the resources you have budgeted in to do 1 or 2 other things currently and in the future. And also for snail farming will give you the time and leisure you've always had. So it's not going to impede on the time you have. Also for snail farming is going to give you that extra cash on the long run. It has a greater return on investment since you're not spending little or nothing on feeding them, only when you buy concentrates, and it will take a long while before they finish a whole bag of concentrates.
All right, before we go now, you talked about the Argentina. Are there other varieties of snails, and which one is the best to actually venture into?
Currently, the Argentina is the giant snail present in Nigeria. It's the most common snail in the country, and it's the best snails. There are other snail species in and around the country, but the Argentina has actually stood out to be the biggest and the most productive.
Okay. All right. Now, finally, in your last words, what are your words to Nigerian teaming youths who are still waiting for white-collar job before they can actually venture into, white-collar job? Generally, everyone wants to go for an interview there. Meanwhile, you can keep like 1,000 snails, and maybe after a year, you can imagine that's 1,000 times 1,000 times. That's a huge amount of money. Yeah. So what's the words to them?
My word to everyone is to keep hope alive. Those that want to stand on the mandates of the presidency and of the country should actually do that. However, it is imperative that we all go back to agriculture. one of the mandates of the presidency right now is to go back to agriculture and food safety, and we have to promote that.
All right. Well, many thanks for staying with also your first agricultural TV station, where we've been looking at snail farming in focus with Dr. Mark Ojemeren, a veterinarian with the Agricultural Research Council of Nigeria. Thank you for coming through.
Thank you very much.
And we hope you come again so we can talk about animals with big, how do you call it now?
Livestock animals.
Livestock animals. On that note, we come to the end of this episode of the program. On behalf of the crew members who made it possible, my name remains Joshua Ishaya. Thank you for being part of it. Bye for now.